Hi guys, today's movie is a little bit different, and it was a unique movie that I saw, just happened to put on my TV, and it left me thinking about a couple different things, particularly in filmmaking, something that I've realized is becoming sort of a topic of discussion lately. Perhaps you've heard of the film Your Name. I have a review of it on my channel, or maybe you've even heard of the movie Book of Henry, which came out recently. And I think this movie that I'm reviewing in this video, Your Name and Book of Henry, all have this kind of similar concept around them, and that is, how do you bridge tonal gaps? How do we take some sort of material that is different from the other part of the material and push them together to create one coherent movie? It's basically how to make a combination of sweet and sour in a cooking analogy or food analogy. How do we combine that sweet and sour? How do we combine light and dark to feel like it's coherent? And so today I'm going to be talking about a movie that tried to get this right. So I watched a Chinese animated film called, and I know I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, so please bear with me, Shi Bai Po Wang Xiao. And this is based on a folktale song. So I'm not sure if it's a true story or not, but it's based on a folktale song that has passed down many generations in the Chinese tradition. And I do believe that it is a true story about a cowherder named Wang Xiao. This movie has changed many of the details from the song and the true life story, and basically it's set during the Sino-Japanese War about this cowherder who gives his all into trying to stop the Japanese. Before getting into the storytelling aspect of it, let's just talk technical details about this film. What I thought about the animation in this film is that it is a low-budget animated film, so I have to remember that while I review it. And the fact that they were able to pull off some of the landscapes that they pulled off in this film for being a low-budget animated film was pretty good. I enjoyed the landscape part of this film. Good job to the animators. However, the characters looked faked most of the time. And that's probably due to the lack of money, but the characters of this film just did not look realistic, and it kind of bogs the movie down a little bit because you're watching something with an engrossing plot and everything, but the characters look like plastic. And that's not to the fault of the filmmakers necessarily. I'm sure they could have pulled off better animation, but the truth is, the animation of the characters is not the best here. Basically, the story of this film is that the hero, the main character, is trying to basically stop the Japanese from infiltrating his village. And he also has a personal vendetta against the Japanese army because his parents were murdered by the Japanese army in one of the first battles of another village and these Japanese army. So this is the part of the review that I come to where I talk about how to make a film and balance dark aspects of the film and light aspects of the film, particularly in children's movies, because adult filmmakers are constantly trying to make their children's movies more engrossing, more impactful, and more important than your standard kiddie fare, right? So how do you put in an aspect or an element which is dark or from the adult world into a film that's meant for kids? And this honestly is a very tricky balance to pull off. So if you're a filmmaker trying to do that, just trying to do that, and I see your movie and I can see that you're trying to pull off and balance this difficult juggling act, I can already give you respect for trying this out, because it's very difficult to do that. It's easy to make a just adult R-rated movie, boom, you're done, or just make a kids movie that's just kiddie fare, laugh, gag, fart. You know, those two, but merging those together, it's very difficult. And that's something that animated films from Pixar tend to do, but it never gets quite that dark. And so putting in darker elements into a kids film, like recently I heard the Book of Henry did, is really difficult juggling act. So let's talk about how this film handled it. This film deals with some very difficult material, and it has a lot to do with anti-war sentiments and why anti-aggression is important, etc. And just it's technically trying to push out this peace-loving message by showing you the hardships and the dreadful parts of war, while also trying to be a kids movie. And this is where it can get messy. And for this film, it does get a little bit messy, in that it's trying super hard to make sure that the kids are enjoying this film, but it is unable to put that aspect of the film integrated very well into the darker aspects of the film. Let me give you an example. The movie tends to cut back and forth from these violent shootings to these kids just playing around or running away from these amazingly playful Japanese army, and the tone feels very inconsistent. The screenplay is really not written well. The script kind of feels like it's trying to do both at the same time, but they're both there. Both aspects are definitely there, but it's just not meshed together right. How I would have done it would have been a little bit differently. In my opinion, the best way to deal with these kind of films is to give your main child protagonist living in this adult, difficult, dark world a sense of imagination. And this injects a sort of innocence into the film that allows the film to feel smooth, because you know that the kid's world is just imaginary, and despite the fact that he wishes it were real and that everything were okay, the war is still going on. And I gotta bring up the name of this movie because it is one of the best films I've seen on this. Guys, if you haven't seen Studio Ghibli's Grave of the Fireflies, please check it out. It is a very tragic war movie, so please take out a time where you're feeling like you can handle a heavy material, but it's this kind of film that's able to inject this innocence, particularly from the younger sister. I don't remember her character's name, but it's able to inject this sense of innocence through her. This film that I just saw just wasn't able to do that. The film actually takes that child part in reality, and there's these friendly animals and all this kind of stuff, and it's trying to cater to kids. I can see the intention is good, but it just doesn't feel right to have this slapstick humor and then suddenly cut to brutal shootings. It doesn't mesh together right. It doesn't integrate together right, and that it doesn't create the sense of completeness that the film should. And it's a very difficult thing to do, I agree, but being able to integrate that, I think the best way to do that is through the child's imagination, the character's imagination. So it feels like even though this world is separate from this world, the kid's world, the imagination is basically the bridge between the two worlds, and it really works better that way than to have you cut from these different sequences to different sequences. Then it feels a little bit unnatural. So in being able to juggling those tonal shifts, this movie does fail. But that doesn't mean the movie is a complete failure. There are a lot of redeeming qualities to this movie. First of all, the characters are really well written, and the characters are really treated with a lot of respect. And especially Wang Xiao, I mean, the way that they treated his character felt venerable and just very well written. He was clever, he was strong, intelligent, and they did a good job of putting those aspects into him in a way that children can enjoy. But again, the tonal shifts kind of make this movie collapse on itself towards the end. But still, I enjoyed Wang Xiao's character. I enjoyed his friends. I enjoyed the people who lived in his village. Everyone was thinking intelligently. There was no necessarily stupidity in this movie. Even though the movie does fall into slapstick mode sometimes, they still were able to make sure that the characters remain constant throughout the film and the characteristics remain constant. And that's something I appreciated about this film. Once again, the animation was okay, and the plot is engrossing, definitely. There's a lot of war, conflict, and strategy. So it's an interesting film to watch as a plot-wise, even though it falls into that kiddie zones every now and then. As an adult or teenager, you can enjoy this movie as what it is for being a war movie. But just the tonal shifts, again, made this movie not as great as it could have been. So, and I'm going to give Xie by Po Wang or Xiao a C. And I'm sorry if I mispronounced those names again. And, I think it's an interesting film to watch, because you think about how are we going to give children's films a little bit more depth and maybe introduce small aspects of a darker world into the children's film. How do you bridge that gap? And it's a difficult job to do, and I'm still waiting to see someone do it well. Not necessarily a children's film, but just a film that was able to bridge a gap between a dark side and a light side, or that kind of a conflict between tones was the film Your Name. Check out my review for it, and definitely check out the film. I gave it 4.5 stars, I believe, on my review. So it's a good film that bridges that gap well, going from comedy to almost tragedy. And I enjoyed that film very much. How I was able to bridge that gap. So I'm still looking out for films that are able to do that well. But it's a very difficult job to do, and I have a lot of respect for anyone who's able to even try it. It's difficult. And yeah, that's all I have for you guys in this review. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to check out all my other reviews. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Speaking of subscribe, there's a little bell icon next to the subscribe button. Be sure to click that when you subscribe because it lets you know of when I've produced a new video, such as this video, and you'll know spot on when I have a new video. So thanks for watching this video, guys, and I'll see you next time.